I must admit to you, I have never in my entire life purchased a manga. It just didn't really interest me. I grew up on traditional Western American comic books, and I'm content to continue reading and enjoying those comic books. There's a growing number of people who really enjoy manga, and I don't think it's peaked. I think it's still on the rise. This was probably fueled by anime. When I was growing up, it was called Japanime. It was mostly from Japan. I believe there's a lot of this stuff from multiple Asian countries, but it was mostly Japan growing up. And so we called it Japanime. Things like the Guyver. I remember the original Street Fighter movie or cartoon. I believe it was a Japanese animation. It was really good. I enjoyed some of the stuff, but I never thought to buy manga. Well, I purchased the first manga that I have ever purchased in my entire life, and it's being put out by RippaSend. It looks interesting. Now, Eric July did a video, an hour-long video with the creators. Originally, I thought it was just like telling the Bible story of the Archangel Gabriel with some embellishment, but it is it's a sci-fi story based on the angel Gabriel, not necessarily a Bible story, but with Bible influence. And it actually looks really good. Like when I saw this, I was like, okay, I'm not a manga guy, but I'm intrigued by this. And the price point, I was like, okay, why not? I'm going to go ahead and purchase this, but we're going to watch this. We're going to watch, this video. This is a video preview of Gabriel and the Guardians, and it looks good. They actually have a cartoon on Angel Studios streaming app. I don't know how many episodes are out, if it's just one episode, if it's several episodes. I don't have a subscription to Angel Studios, so I really couldn't tell you.
Legends speak of 12 seeds, gifted to unite the mortal realm. But unity crumbled.
Now, if you are familiar with the Bible, those 12 seeds, there's 12 tribes of Israel based on the 12 children. There's 12 disciples. And the creators mentioned that there's some callbacks and some, Bible references that people who read the Bible will get here and there. But I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing.
Into ambition decayed into greed, and a lust for power cast the world into chaos. For 1,000 years, those who held the seeds have scoured the wastelands of Ara, desperate for another.
Yeah, so as you can see, they created this made up place of Ara. And so even though it's loosely based on biblical accounts with heavy biblical reference, but you can tell it's not just because, and I believe I've brought this up before, based on an article I read from Fandom Post. Sometimes Christians struggle to make good art because they want to make entertaining art, but also want to be, I'd say, rather preachy. Now, look, I have a whole Bible podcast. I have no problem with the Bible message. Obviously, I'm a believer. But if you're creating art for the sake of good entertainment, there's a way you can have your Bible and Christian influence while also just telling an entertaining story. And I think that's a struggle sometimes believers have. I believe these guys might have actually done a good job from what I see just right out the gate. Like I said, this was enough to have me say, you know what? I'm purchasing this manga. I've never purchased one in my life, but I'm doing it now.
To emerge, none did. Until now. A new breed of evil has emerged. And if they are not stopped, They could unravel the very fabric of creation itself.
The darkness is spreading. It seeks to consume you.
I love the voice acting. I've wanted to get into voice acting. I know nothing about it. I probably wouldn't do good at it at all. I actually set up a profile on this voice acting website. I haven't really put any effort or time into it. Who knows? I actually have something of my own in the works that I'm not going to go into detail on that. Lord willing, I'll make some progress on that. But I really do like the voice acting on this. Oftentimes I'll see a cartoon or just something that requires voice acting and you hear the voices and it's like, oh, this kind of jarring because it doesn't fit, but they got voices that actually fit. And I was like, man, I really like this. I wonder if this is what the manga is going to look like. These black and white panels right here. We shall see.
But you are not alone. There is hope. I will stand with you, unshaken by the shadow's grasp. I am a celestial guardian, defender of creation. I am Gabriel.
Okay. I am definitely interested in what they got going on there. And of course, it is put out. Why is my screen? I just realized my screen was like this. I don't know what's going on there. Of course, this is put out by RippaSend, which is their the RippaVerse's publishing house. Which, look, kudos, shout out to the RippaVerse for putting together a publishing house. And I guess from the story Eric July told, he actually initially didn't have any intention of doing this. And Jay, who wrote Achromatic Chronicles, he's the one that kept, putting the bug in his ear. And he finally said, you know what? Let me see what I can do with this. Good idea. Good idea. This is why having good people around you is actually beneficial on your behalf. You got to surround yourself with people that are trying to do similar things to you. Not everybody's going to be at the level you're at, obviously, depending on your level of success, but you want people that are trying to motivate you towards something positive. Okay, so Gabriel and the Guardians, the official manga. RippaVerse Comics, through our creator-owned publishing wing, is proud to be the official publisher of Gabriel and the Guardians manga, based on the animated series produced by Angel Studios and Colossul Studios. Gabriel and the Guardians is a thrilling adventure set in a world of celestial battles, heroic destinies, and powerful forces beyond imagination. The series features an all-star cast including Johnny Young Bosch, Christina V, Matt Lanter, James Arnold Taylor, and Christina Milizia. The Gabriel and the Guardians manga will expand on the universe of the show, giving fans even a more deeper look into the story, characters, and lore. Issue number 0 will be available for pre-order soon, exclusively through RippaSend. Stay tuned for more information, and obviously, it is available for pre-order. $4.99. I was like, yo, $4.99. Done. I'm buying a copy. This is look, to me, great idea. Great idea. I had no idea this was in the works, and when it was announced, I was like, yo, I really like this. I really like this a lot. So something else I wanted to get to, this is going to be a little more controversial, and I'm going to tell you the reason why I always cover these things, especially when Eric July does videos like this. Look, we can all, at least at a bare minimum, agree that in the geek space, just like any space, there's varying degrees of interest. I know people personally who are not interested in the RippaVerse at all. We have conversations about comics, and it stops at that. They don't want to see him fail. There's no visceral hatred. People have their opinions one way or another. But I think he covered some things in this video. Look, this is what's astonishing to me. There are people that want this company to fail so bad that At every metric, they're like, oh, it's failing because of this. It's failing because of that. Look, I'm going to tell you, I was at MegaCon. MegaCon was ginormous. And the lines that this company sustained and the enthusiasm around it was noticeable. Like you couldn't look past this booth and go, oh yeah, that's nothing. You walk past the booth and it was like, yo, what's going on over here? Like what celebrity is over here? It was a big deal. It was a big deal. Believe me when I tell you, I was there. Had I not seen it with my own eyes, I could understand people saying, I don't know about this. I was there. I witnessed this. My own self, standing in line myself, talking to Eric myself, watching all the other people that were in line waiting to talk, witnessed this with my own eyes. This is like, I'm not making this up. But of course, you're going to have people that believe this is made up, and I'm not really here to argue. I really think that he covered some really good points in this video.
You've probably heard that before. And look, people are free to have...
I'll go back.
The RippaVerse is failing. You've probably heard that before. And look, people are free to have their opinions about our work. That's the nature of any creative project. Some folks will like it, some won't, and that's normal.
Yeah, you know what taught me this valuable lesson? As my small YouTube channel, which I'm trying to grow it, but as my YouTube channel grows more and more, I realize more and more there are people that just don't rock with me at all. They do not like my videos. There have been people that have told me, look, I just don't like your content. I understand that. I can't be mad because somebody doesn't like my content, but there are obviously people out there who do, because my channel, as small as and incremental as it is steadily growing day by day. And I'm watching those numbers go up more and more. So there are people who don't like the content, and there are some people who really do like the content. I think you're going to have that with anything.
But it's strange how some start attacking neutral voices and even those who speak positively about the RippaVerse.
And I can speak to this myself. I'm not going to say I've never seen this, but I simply enjoy the books that the RippaVerse put out. This is not cap. Look, for those of you, and I truly ask you to do this, for those of you who say you don't really believe those books are good, you can't enjoy those books, I ask you, I've put out 2 thus far, and I'm going to do more across more of the books. Even though I do bombard you with a lot of RippaVerse stuff, I know not everybody wants to see me only review RippaVerse books. And I love all kind of comics. I love DC. I love Marvel. There may be some other independent comic books that I cover that I really like. But just look through my deep dive series on Gooding and Yaira. You will see this is not cap. I'm not blowing smoke. I literally enjoy these books thoroughly. I am extremely entertained by the stories, the art, and everything in between. So just go watch those videos. Like I said, I have 2 playlists, one going over Gooding and one going over Yaira #1. Before you go in the comments and say, you can't believe these books are good, go watch those videos. You might disagree with me that they're good, but at least acknowledge, okay, this dude actually enjoys these books.
It's like they're invested in seeing us collapse, yet here we are, heading into our 3rd year of supposedly failing. This creates a great opportunity, especially...
And I will say this, with the movement that his company has made, in my humble opinion, there's no way you make this movement and this progress if you're failing. That just doesn't make sense. Constantly new books being announced, constantly looking for other avenues to do things, coming out with a publishing company, putting out Achromatic Chronicles Blue and Green, and now putting out Gabriel and the Guardians. Yo, that's not small. And they're like, objectively, there's no way I could look at that and go, this company is failing. Now, I'm not saying it's surpassing anybody else or surpassing this or surpassing that. But yo, there is a level of success objectively and clearly that the RippaVerse is experiencing. I don't understand the denial of that obvious thing that we can all witness with our own eyes.
for aspiring independent creators to dive into some real business lessons, because this isn't just about comics, it's about how success is perceived.
And there's another reason why I like these videos. There's things that I would like to do. Look, if you've ever had an idea, if you think it is simple to execute on that idea and that thing make money, you are sadly mistaken. And the fact that he has been able to do this, I'm not trying to attack anybody who has success. I may not like what you do, but I'm looking at what you do and I'm like, okay, how did they achieve this success? Look, I do this with YouTube. There are channels that I don't particularly follow. There might even be channels that I don't particularly care for, but they have like insane success. I will watch their videos and see, well, what did they do? How did they start? What lessons can I learn from this person? Because whether I like them or not, whether I agree with them or not on any issue, they have achieved levels of success that warrant me learning a lesson from them. And I really do believe there's many independent creators that attack this man that could actually learn from this man and probably achieve more success. He's doing something right, man. You can hate him, but he's doing something right.
Or misrepresented in the indie space. Many focus on the creative side but overlook the business mechanics. And if you're into that kind of insight, check out my Creator Business channel where I dive into these topics all the time.
By the way, I'm not subscribed to that channel. I'm definitely, after this, Lord willing, I'm going to subscribe to that channel because there are things I would like to do, and this dude has some gems and I'm trying to learn.
The RippaVerse made waves in 2022 with ISOM #1 generating $3.7 million.
Crazy. If you were around when this thing first launched, I did not expect, I expected it to do good, right? Just from what I heard him say about what he was planning to do, what he had in the works, the direction he was going, I was like, okay, this is probably going to do good. I did not see this coming. I did not see this coming at all. And look, man, I think it was deserved. I read the book. I enjoyed the book. I know people have their criticisms. I've gone over that book, but I'm going to go back again and do a deep dive like I did with Gooding and Yaira and go over why I enjoyed that book.
In sales. Despite technical hiccups, we hit $1 million by day 2, drawing attention.
And here's one of the technical hiccups, and I think he's going to mention this. There was a delay in delivery, and I remember this. I remember this vaguely, even though, it wasn't that long ago. But the reasoning, when you look at the reason why there was a delay, they did not expect to make as much as they made, and the pre-orders really blew everything out the water. It was like, yo, okay, we need more. That's a good problem to have. That's a good hiccup to have so much support that you were not prepared to have that much support. That may be an issue for you, but if there is a problem I'm going to have, if I start a business venture, that's a problem that I want to have.
From major outlets like Blaze and Fox News. They only wanted to hit us up after we had all that success. This success was the result of a perfect storm, a textbook first mover advantage.
I'm glad he mentioned this because this is a recognition that he struck while the iron was hot. But here's the thing. I think if people are paying attention, you could actually piggyback off this success and again strike while the iron is hot. But here's what you have to do. I see a lot of independent comic books, and look, I'm not a comic book creator, but I like what I like. And some of these books are not even close to being up to par in quality, not even close. And I think what he did with that perfect storm, he had the perfect combination. Is or was his writing perfect? Obviously not. This was his first book. But man, it was a quality story. And the art was quality art. I know people are going to scream about 3D assets. Didn't bother me. The art was good.
There was no frame of reference, no prior releases. It was our market entry disrupting the industry in a way few indie publishers could. We launched during peak consumer dissatisfaction, filling a void exactly when audiences were hungry for alternatives. It was a lightning in a bottle moment, one that just can't be replicated. In 2000,
right, and this is why I say businessmen who understand the moment will always make money, and he understood the moment, and he went out. Look at that cover, man. That cover's dope. I don't care what you say. That cover's dope.
2023, Item Number 2 brought in $2.3 million in sales. As anyone familiar with comics knows, sequels, especially.
So I pointed this out to somebody in my comments. We had a back and forth about sequels and sales. And I'm just going to mention this one more time because I think it's something to note. Jim Lee and Chris Claremont released the largest, the top selling individual issue of all time in comic books. X-Men number 1, 1991, sold 8.3 million copies of a single book. Now, many things factor into that. You had the different variant covers that together created a big spread. Great idea. So people who bought the book, I have every single variant cover. And I think everybody who bought the book did that. That was genius. But X-Men number 2, so it wasn't like, okay, 8.3 million, right? So if you account for variant covers, and all of that, yeah, let's say not everybody probably bought the variant covers, but a lot of people did. So let's say if you take away from that, let's say they sold 5 million. X-Men number 2 sold approximately 2 million. That's a significant drop. That wasn't indicative of X-Men losing popularity. As a matter of fact, as a result of those books, the X-Men cartoon, one of the best animated comic book adaptation series of all time, was launched as a result of the success of those runs. A drop in sales from a number 1 to number 2 is not necessarily indicative of, oh, this is a failure. And look, that's just one metric. You could look into this yourself, and there are several number 1s that did great, and the subsequent issues didn't do as good, but the comic book maintained an insane amount of popularity. So that's a point. Look, this is not making stuff up. This is an actual point using facts and data. This is not made up.
Issue number 2's rarely matched the debut, but even with that expectation, Item number 2 was a massive success. We also expanded our lineup with Alpha Core number 1, which crossed $1 million in sales. But here's the thing, in comics, one title success doesn't guarantee another's. Expecting Blue Beetle to outsell Batman isn't realistic.
Right. And this is a great point. If you're reading Absolute Batman right now, it is incredible. And I don't think, and I'm open to be wrong, so you can, correct me in the comments if you think I'm wrong about this, but I don't think there's anything DC is putting out right now that's touching this story in Absolute Batman. And so it's not a surprise to me if other books in DC don't sell as well as Absolute Batman. That doesn't mean DC is collapsing. I mean, you can argue these companies aren't doing as good as they once were doing, but Batman doing exceptionally well and another book not touching its numbers doesn't mean, oh, it's over, the company is done. Nah, that's not what that means.
Readers connect with specific characters and stories, leading to varied performance across titles. This was also when we anticipated shifts in consumer purchasing behavior, with more releases.
And like I said, he's dropping gems. There are subtle things as a businessman that you really have to pay attention to beyond surface level. I am not a businessman. I'm not telling you I understand the ins and outs of business, but I'm telling you the man's reasoning is very sound, in my opinion.
Buying habits evolved. Yaira number 1 marked our final use of the traditional long pre-order collection that ran like 80 days. After that, we pivoted, increasing release frequency and shorting pre-order.
And this is another thing that wasn't paid attention to. the price of the books dropped at this time. And that pre-order window, I think that first Yaira, was it like a month or something like that? Maybe a little bit over a month, maybe just at a month, but it definitely wasn't like a 3-month, 4-month campaign.
Windows to operate more like a traditional publisher. We adopted a collection model, smaller, focused pre-orders with fewer items. It streamlined the process and changed customer habits. Many buyers waited until after pre-order windows closed to make purchases, often consolidating orders to save on shipping, a common consumer optimization strategy. And here's an example of that coming directly from a customer. In 2024,
so and that's the thing, right? We can only see, like, during the campaigns, you'll see those numbers, but you don't know how many books, how many shirts, how many posters, how many hats are bought outside of those campaigns. I have bought things from the RippaVerse outside of the campaign. I know I'm not the only one, but we see the numbers in a campaign and think that's the only numbers there is to see. And I think if that's what you think, you're actually mistaken in how you judge the success of the RippaVerse or the lack thereof. And I unfortunately, I think there's so much disdain for him because of his opinions on political issues that people want his company to fail, despite the obvious success, as I've said before.
Scaled up even more, releasing Yaira #1, Gooding the Polymath, The Horseman, Welcome to Flores Park.
The Horseman is a magnificent book, and it is gritty. It is gritty. It is. He is not your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, I'll tell you that.
Bloodroof #1 and 2 RippaZines alongside art books and
that RippaZine #2 and Saoirse. I am so excited to see Kanan White do the interiors for an entire Saoirse book. And that Saoirse story, man, oh man, did I want more.
And other merchandise. This expanded catalog led to more transactions from a broader customer base, boosting revenue even without a $3.7 million breakout hit. The key, we scaled the business by diversifying our product line.
And this is a point. I've been doing some studying into business. Again, I'm not going to tell you I'm any kind of business expert. That's not what I'm saying. But one thing I have noticed over the course of many businesses and some failed businesses, your ability to be scalable will actually, in certain market scenarios, dictate your success or failure. And this is obviously something that he paid attention to. That's not a small deal.
And adapting to changing buyer habits, resulting in higher total revenue in 2024, despite shorter pre-order windows and no single mega hit. We operated like a traditional publisher, like we always wanted.
Right. So he changed up his strategy, operating like a traditional publisher, and made more money than he did the year before. I do not see how you can objectively look at that and say, this is a failure. That doesn't make sense to me. And I get it. I get it. We all want to see what we want to see. But I think if you were to give an objective look at this, you might say, I don't like his books. You might say, I think his books are trash. But you won't be able to say this is a failure. I mentioned this on a video on my X, by the way. If you're not following me on X, the Thinking on X, if you're on there. And what I mentioned is, me and my cousin and some of my friends growing up, we used to have debates about comic books, who we like, who we don't like. And man, we would go at it. But at no point was there a hatred for a person because they liked a certain thing. There were things that I strongly did not like. And there are things that my cousin and some of our friends strongly did not like that I liked. And yeah, we'd rag on each other for a little bit, go at it, but it was all part of the fun. Like, we all have individual interests. Not everybody's going to be interested in his company or his books. I think they're great. You might think they're trash. You have another company that you might like that I might say, not my thing. I don't like it. I've recommended books on my channel before, and I've had some of my subscribers say, yeah, really wasn't a fan of that one, but I get it. I see why you like it. Yo, if we can get back to that, we can actually have enjoyment, which, look, I'll tell you right now, I am enjoying this channel. I am enjoying the interactions. And I think it's primarily because I don't really like whether a person likes what I like or don't like. It doesn't really bother me. I enjoy comic books and I'm having fun. And this company really has got me excited about storytelling again, man.
It to be, but with the transparency often associated with crowdfunding. And that's where some of the confusion comes in. In crowdfunding,
so there's this thing I've seen going around that he attacked crowdfunding. And I'm like, man, that's just, I don't understand what this is, but there is this propensity to say something and believe it true, even though it objectively is not true. And then you try to force other people to believe that same thing. I've listened to all his comments about this stuff. It's not hatred and it's not attacking crowdfunding, but he was addressing issues with crowdfunding at one point, namely creators not delivering on what fans have paid for, which, look, I can tell you that is a problem. There are things I have supported in crowdfunding 2 years ago, and I still haven't received books. In my humble opinion, that's a problem. There has to be a better way, because this is not a way for a sustainable and scalable business. And I think this is the point that he's been making this whole time.
platforms like Indiegogo's and demand feature keep campaigns open indefinitely, so funding totals climb over time, giving the appearance of ongoing momentum. The RippaVerse operates a little differently. Our pre-order collections have set windows. When they close, the counter stops, but sales don't. Just because the Horseman's pre-order collection ended doesn't mean that people
really, I think, have a huge misunderstanding. You can go to RippaVerse.com, and any book that has had a campaign, you can buy that book today, right now, and might I add, receive that book within 2 or 3 days. I know this for a fact because I have done it. So I know I can't be the only one purchasing books in this way. So they're making money that's not tracked by that counter. Again, something else that people don't account for.
People stopped buying it. Our expanded catalog has become a significant asset, generating consistent storefront sales. Even without an active pre-order, it's not unusual for us to pull in $10,000 in a single day from just general store sales. Yaira number 2's pre-order collection closed at 10.7 thousand books sold. By the next morning, that number had already surpassed 11,000. This hybrid model, combining publisher-style releases with transparent pre-order counters, offers the best of both worlds: clear reporting for customers and ongoing revenue beyond initial launches. Our increased release volume has directly influenced buyer habits, and the results speak for themselves. Since Bloodroof number 1, we've generated nearly $2 million in pre-order collection sales alone. That's 4 months. And as of me recording,
that's not a small number. That is not a small number, and that's just on that book. That doesn't include what they've sold, like I said, in posters, hats, shirts, calendars, and other books.
Recording this video, we've already made almost $1 million in just collection sales in under 2 months. Now, I'm not sure what people think we're spending on payroll, warehousing, and logistics, but I can assure you it's nowhere near those revenue figures. Our operational overhead is lean, even if we cut sales.
And if you've ever worked manufacturing, which I have a whole career in this, being lean is a big deal. And clearly, he understands the principle of not allowing your overhead to exceed a certain point, which allows you to maximize revenue without being forced into the situation where you have to bring in some extreme amount of revenue. Now, you might ask, well, why'd he do that? Didn't he plan on making, trillions of dollars because his books were so good? That's not reality. Reality is, as he said, customer trends change. What happens when you have an economic downturn? During an economic downturn, comic books are not big on my list of things. You have priorities. So you make sure your business is scalable. You don't have too much overhead. So in economic downturns, you have other ways of sustaining and you don't have to take in some exorbitant amount of profits just to stay afloat, just to keep your doors open. Smart.
In half, we'd still be able to run a highly profitable operation. That's the
So let me rewind that because I don't know. You got to hear what he just said.
assure you it's nowhere near those revenue figures. Our operational overhead is lean. Even if we cut sales in half, we'd still be able to run a highly profitable operation.
That, my friends, I don't care what you believe about him. That is smart business. Understanding, having foresight, planning ahead and saying, you know what if things were cut in half? Could we still sustain? Yes. Okay. Let's maintain that. Let's keep it lean and let's keep doing what we're doing.
That's the strength of having a scalable business model with solid margins. We've built something that's sustainable and those numbers back that up. Let's break this down from a business perspective because there are some key lessons that every independent creator should understand. Success isn't just about raw numbers. It's about structuring your business for long-term sustainability.
Man, this is something I think we have a shiny carrot syndrome on the planet today. Everyone wants that shiny carrot. If I can just make this, $1 billion by tomorrow, everything will be all right. Instead of saying, you know what, I might not be able to reach that, but I might be able to make $2,000 a week on this private small business for the next 5 years. And in 2 years, I might be able to use those profits to put into another branch of the business that brings in another $1,500 a month on top of that $2,000. Now I'm at $3,500. Now I'm becoming scalable. I have different revenue streams, different things going on, and now I'm able to move a little bit. I got some wiggle room. Man, I don't think these are things that are considered ever, especially I think when people are judging someone else's business, none of these things are considered, but I can almost guarantee if you owned your own business, these would definitely be things on your mind.
5 major takeaways. Number 1, scalable business models. A scalable business model lets revenue grow without a proportional increase in cost. Our shift from long pre-order collections to frequent focused releases allowed us to scale our product volume while keeping operational overhead in check. And why that matters is because scalability ensures profitability even when sales fluctuate. Indie creators should focus on growth without overextending financially. Number 2, revenue diversification and long tail sales. These are 2 terms you have to become familiar with. Now, we've made nearly $2 million since Bloodroof number 1 in collection sales, but we also have a lot that comes from long tail revenue, and that's sales after pre-order windows close. Expanding our catalog created multiple income streams, reducing reliance on any single hit. So indie creators shouldn't bet everything on just one product.
You don't put all your eggs in one basket. This is such a basic lesson. And I could tell after the company was launched that that's where they were going. Like, okay, they're not trying to put all their eggs in one basket. They understand they got one hit, but they're trying to have as many stable hits as possible. And not every hit is going to be as successful as the other one. If I was an artist and I dropped the album and sold 4 million copies, would you say I was a failure if my next album sold 2 million copies? No, that album didn't do as good, but I don't think anyone would call me a failure at that point. Or if you would call me a failure, man, I guess you don't understand metrics.
Project. If you can, build a catalog, and even older work will continue generating revenue over time. There's a lot of people in this world, and it's not just limited to your corner of the internet. So there always will be people learning about you. Number 3, consumer behavior and market adaptation. As our release volume increased, buyer habits shifted. Some waited to buy after pre-orders closed. They wanted to save on shipping or just buy multiple items at a time. while others pre-ordered immediately. Pay attention to how your audience buys and adapt accordingly. Market conditions and consumer habits change, recognizing and adjusting.
Yo, and you know one thing, like I don't know about every indie creator. I don't know. A lot of indie creators I've looked into, when you look at their old books, they're no longer in print. You can get them ish. Some creators I've found that you have to wait for another campaign to be going in order to get that previous book. But with the way they're doing business here, those old books are always available. And I don't think that's something that's done by everyone in the independent space. And I think there's a lesson to be learned here.
To these shifts can determine long-term growth. Number 4, managing perception versus reality. And the importance is context. People often assume collection sales are the full picture, but they're not. Our counters.
And this is what's crazy to me, is this is an obvious point that I do think some avoid on purpose, which is kind of strange. I don't know, like, let's just acknowledge that, yo, okay, well, yeah, the campaign sold this much, didn't sell as much as the last campaign, but clearly you're selling merch. Clearly you're selling posters and other stuff, and this book is selling even after the campaign, and the campaign is shorter and the books cost less. If you look, I don't know how long you've been buying comic books. To my knowledge, I'm trying to think, I don't remember the price of comic books going down. And I will say, from my first RippaVerse purchase to my most recent purchases, the prices have dropped, and considerably. That's not a bad sign. It would be a bad sign if the prices dropped, they were slowing down, they weren't putting out as much content, you didn't see as much activity. Then it would be like, all right, they're trying to get rid of inventory because the company's closing. Yo, there's always something new coming out, and the prices are dropping, which means with the volume that he's sustaining, he's getting better deals from the companies that he's working with. I think that's just obvious, my humble opinion.
Stop when collections close, but sales keep going. Here's the key. Context matters. Comparing businesses without understanding different models, overhead, and sales strategies is misleading. Just because two companies operate in the same space doesn't mean they're playing the same game. Indie creators, of course, should study other businesses, but recognize the importance of context. Not all comparisons are one-to-one. And number 5, profitability over raw revenue, because at the end of the day, profitability is what counts. It's not just the raw revenue. Even if our sales were half, we'd still be profitable thanks to our lean operations.
This is a big lesson to be learned. For me especially, if I plan on doing anything on my own, this is a valuable lesson. Like making sure you're scalable, making sure you're not outgrowing yourself, that what you have is sustainable, not just major leaps, right? Like this, like it's the old saying, the old adage of this not being a race, but a, what is this? Not a race, but a marathon, right? Like this is, you got to be in this for the long haul. Are you just trying to make a quick profit right now? What I call it, just because this is the era and the stuff I grew up in Brooklyn, I call it drug money. Everyone is looking for drug money. The drug dealers, when I was growing up, were making more money than anyone. Some of them were able to invest, and they still have things to this day, even though they're not selling drugs. But it's rare. That is rare. Most of them have nothing to show for that quick money. Meanwhile, I joined the military, worked a regular job, been working for years, and I have way more to show than what some of these drug dealers that saw that initial spike of money. I have way more to show for what I've done over the years. That drug money, that quick, fast buck is not always the way. Do what you do to be sustainable over time. I think that's a better strategy, in my humble opinion.
And diversified income streams. Chasing big revenue without focusing on profitability is a common trap. Prioritize sustainable, scalable growth that keeps your business.
And this is actually something that has helped me out with this YouTube channel. there was a point where I was like, yo, okay, how do you get big numbers, big numbers? And then I realized something. I realized that many of the channels that I know of that have huge numbers, when you look at the number of subscribers versus the number of views. Now, even I succumb to this. I can admit I don't have a lot, but I have 800 something subscribers, and I might get 100 views out of a video. Every now and again, I'll have a breakout and I'll do 400 views or something like that. But what I've kind of learned is, okay, how do I make this sustainable? How do I constantly give the audience content that they want to see, that's as quality as I can put out? I don't have the best quality. I'm not naive. I know that. But I'm putting out the best quality I can in the time I have allotted. And I want to do it in such a way that I don't overburden myself, overpromise and underdeliver. I don't want to do that. So I figured, you know what? How about I do one video a day, whether that video is 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. If I can just do one during the weekday and maybe sometime do it on a weekend, I think I can sustain that and maybe get a more balanced audience that keeps returning. And I think that's beginning to pay out because I'm seeing it in my numbers. I don't have huge numbers, but it's becoming more and more consistent. The amount of views I get consistent across videos, which I prefer that over a huge spike and then a drop off and nobody's watching. And I think this is kind of the business strategy that he's taken here. And I like it.
It's healthy long term, guys. Independent creators should view success through the lens of profitability, scalability, and sustainability, not just raw sales figures. In other words, your success will largely be determined by your own aspirations that you have to be realistic about. It's easy to compare yourself to others based on flashy metrics, but without context, those comparisons are often meaningless. Perspective matters, and understand your market, adapt to buyer habits, and structure your business for stability and growth.
Yo, and you know what? I experienced this on this YouTube channel in this regard. Now, look, I am no businessman. I'd like to be one day, hopefully. We'll see. Yeah, maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. But I was making videos more on news, politics a little. The thing is, here's the thing about that. You have to be dedicated if you're going to make videos on news and politics to constantly checking, rechecking, watching videos, reading tons of articles, checking your facts, rechecking your facts. It's a full-time job just doing that. And I wasn't enjoying that. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't enjoying that. RippaVerse launches. I make one video about the launch of the RippaVerse. It's comic books. I'm already collecting comic books. I love this stuff. So this got me excited. I was already following Eric July, following his political commentary. And I was like, yo, this is dope. This dude is starting a comic book. It took off. And I was like, yo, I don't really enjoy covering the news like that. I was just kind of doing it. I got another YouTube channel, that I was primarily focused on, my Bible channel. And I was like, I'll cover some news. Wasn't really a thing I loved. It was I won't say it was enjoyable. It was just like, you know what? I'm an information junkie. I'll disseminate some of this stuff. But like I said, it's a hard thing to do. Respect to journalists who actually cover news accurately. It's not as easy as you think. And it definitely takes a lot of checking and triple checking constantly. But the audience really responded to the comic book coverage. So I said, you know what? Audience likes this better, and I like it better as well. I'm just going to cover comic books, and it works, right? Paying attention to what the audience want. Now, of course, you don't want to get caught into audience capture. Obviously, I'm going to have things that I think you disagree with, and that's fine. I can't succumb to what you don't like if I like something that's opposite. I can respect your opinion and say, hey, look, I understand. Here's why I like this. But as far as covering comics, yeah, this is way more enjoyable. I am really enjoying myself covering comic books.
Growth. That's how you build something that lasts. And that's exactly what we're doing here at the RippaVerse.
Yo, shout out, man. Shout out. I respect it. I respect it. What do you think? What do you think? I'm sure there will be some arguments and some disputes in the comments. I'm looking forward to it.